actually takes to get there. Okay, so today I want to help you get rich through lessons I've learned along my journey. My mission has always been to bring financial freedom to the people who deserve it. Hardworking, high-character individuals who want to build for themselves or their families in a world of burn-it-downers. This episode is for you. By the end of this episode, you will be able to walk away with a framework or game plan to building your wealth today. But first, if you're digging this podcast like a raccoon in a dumpster, don't be stingy. Share it with your friends, your ex, or even your weird neighbor. Let's get this thing spread like peanut butter on a hot summer day, huh? All right, let's jump into the episode. I want to start this podcast not with hard tactics and tools, but something even more important that you might not think about often, your relationship with money. My overall philosophy on money completely changed once I started making it. And then I realized why so many of us live most of our lives never having actually touched money. Let's think about this for just a second here. The average person, so 46% of all Americans, die with less than $10,000 to their name. That is so scary. And I think we feel this all around us, right? I mean, today it's like we have stagnating wages. Our money and dollars hasn't gone up over the last 20 years, but we have increasing productivity, which means we've actually been doing more. We have these big financial institutions like the Fed and banks that are supposed to help us make more money, but somehow we are making less. We have less to spend. We can't afford houses. We can't really afford our mortgage most often. And increasingly, even things like groceries can be hard. We feel that there's like something wrong in society. And a lot of that we could say is the economy and is other people on high. But I think some of this actually comes down to the way we think about money and the relationship we have with it. And so in my mind, it's don't trust the big institutions. Don't trust Wall Street. Don't trust the banks. Don't trust me. It comes down to trusting yourself. And I want to break that down. Let me tell you why I think most people don't make money. Because in order to make money, you actually have to not tell me what you want to do. You have to tell me what you're willing to give up or sacrifice in order to get it. Money is a cruel mistress, and it requires more from you than I think most people are willing to admit. You know, for instance, I think about one of the guys I knew early on in business. And I remember asking him what his goal was for the year. And he wanted to build a $10 million business in the asset management space. And he asked me what I wanted to do. And by comparison, my goal was really small. I was like, I want to make a couple $100,000 this year. Like, I think that would be really, really big. And I'm not sure if I can do it. And that would change my life forever. And, he kind of looked at me and he said, okay, well, how likely do you think you are to make a couple $100,000 this year? And I was like, fuck. I wasn't making anything like that at the time. And so I was like, I don't know, like 5%, 10%. And then he said, imagine that if you don't, I'm going to kill you. You're going to die. Maybe your family dies. Maybe your closest loved ones die. Like, if you don't do this thing, you cease to exist. Now what's your likelihood of success? And I was like, well, it's definitely not fucking 10%. I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to be saying no to some dinners, I'm going to be skipping Netflix. I'm probably going to go after this totally differently. And the reason I bring this up is because I actually think even with all the truth of how hard it is out there to get money, which is real, the hardest thing about getting money is that we don't have a why strong enough to overcome the how that is the truth of how hard making money is. And so when you have a why that is something like, for instance, when I was younger, when I first started really making money, my why was, I want to pour myself into this work. I want to see what is the highest level of execution I can have. I want to see if I stood before God at the end of my days in the next year or two, I could say, I poured it all in. I used every drop of talent that you gave me. And I'm imagining standing in front of God and him going, but really, did you? So for me, that was my why. It was like, I stand before God and I go, I rang it all out. I rang it all out on the table. And because of that, I worked way harder than anybody else. I worked longer than anybody else. I was willing to do what it takes. It's the same thing for you. If you can get deep down to your real, true why, you will become unstoppable and making money will become a byproduct of it. And the last example I'll have of this is, we have a lot of employees and, so across all of our businesses, hundreds, and then the underlying businesses, thousands. And, even in the main business I focus on, this one, which is contrarian thinking, we have like 30 employees, let's say. And I can often tell who really is going to make a ton of money, if that's what matters to them, but who's going to make a ton of money by this one thing. When I ask them, why do you do what you do every day? And if they tell me, well, I'm like trying to figure it out, I don't really know, Say, well, why, if you could make a decision between putting in an extra hour or two at work or going to do something else, why would you do one thing versus the other? The more clear your answer is to that question, the bigger your bank account will be. So let me give you an example of a good answer and a bad answer. And then I think you could put in the comments or tag me in your Instagram stories how your chart shakes out so I can give you feedback live. So on the left-hand side, a good answer sounds like something like this. I just got married. I want to buy a house for me and my wife. I want to be a provider for her. Like, it is so important to me that she sees me as somebody who can take care of her. And so my goal is to go above and beyond, and my why is my wife. Okay, strong. Let me tell you what a bad why sounds like. Well, like, I kind of want this because I think that's like market rate for my talents. And, you know, I think going forward, like, I work really hard, and so I should get this. You know, I should be able to make this. I mean, I'm good at my job. I work really hard. So that's why I want it. Your life will change the second that you realize money is attracted to strong stories and strong whys and not attracted to loose probabilities and maybes. The reason most people don't reach financial freedom is they don't have a why strong enough to compel any how. And then the second reason is they don't actually speak the language of money. And so, you know, how can you expect to become fluent, aka have money all around you, have massive abundance of money, if you don't actually even speak the language at all? That would be ridiculous if you were like, hey, I want to go become fluent in Spanish. Are you practicing? Do you know the language? Are you talking about it frequently? Oh, you're not? Well, you're probably not going to become fluent. That makes sense to me. And it's the same thing with money, which is fascinating, right? Why did nobody ever tell us that? Like, why did they tell us how to save dollars and cents? Why did they tell us how to maybe fill out a 401k? But nobody taught us the language of money. Oh, they crammed calculus and amoebas down our throat, but nothing about the one thing that will give you more freedom than anything else in the world, money. And so when I realized this, I thought, okay, I wonder how big this language is. You know, when you think about like learning a language, you're like, oh, German, that seems tough. Like, you know, they say that German's really hard to understand. But Chinese, that's probably totally tougher. There's like levels to the game of languages, right? And I wanted to understand how big this language of money was. Like, how much studying do we have to do to become fluent in it, to make more of it? And what I realized pretty quickly is the language is shallow, which means there's not many levels to the game of you becoming at least financially free. Now, you becoming the master, the top 1%, the 10%, a billionaire, that language is deep. That is Mandarin. But in order for you to start making a couple $100,000 a year, to provide for your family, to have a house for yourself, to build a nice little business, to get ownership, to decrease risk, the language is not that deep. And so if you want to become really, really rich, you need to learn the language of money. And there's many ways you do this. One of the ways that I think is strongest is you learn deal making. That's why I teach people negotiations and business buy-in. And the reason I do is because deal making is really just saying, can I transfer dollars and cents from me to you or you to me? So all you're doing is it's your exchange. So when you think about speaking a language, what do? You want to go talk to another person often, right? In order for you to practice your language. That is the same thing with deal making. So I think one of the smartest spots to start with learning the language of money is actually learning the language of deals, because then you get to see in practice the words that you would just learn in theory. You know how in America, for instance, most of us in America, we were not taught Spanish by speaking. We're on a little, we had our workbooks, we filled out Spanish cards. And for that reason, Americans by and large are not really proficient in Spanish at all. It's why there's like sort of memes about gringos and how we pronounce things. The difference between you becoming fluent in money and you knowing a few things about money is use. Is do you actually use it and engage with it? And so if I was you, I would be playing the game of becoming a deal maker. I would take courses on how do I do deals. I would start negotiating in real life. And that will be the difference between the many who think they know about money and the few who actually play with money, speak the language, and communicate fluently. One of the ways that you make more money is you avoid losing money and bad mistakes. This is called inversion thinking, and it is a principle that is used by some of the richest investors in the world. So let me break it down for you here. Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner, was very famous for saying, instead of thinking about what I do want, can I think about what I do not want? I will get more clearly to my wants if I understand very clearly my do not desires, the things that are bad for me. And so when it comes to thinking about making money and when it comes to think about growth, I would play inversion thinking. So it would go something like this. I do not want to be poor, right? Well, what is poor? Well, I do not want to make less than $20,000 a year because I don't think I can live off of that. I do not want to have to work 70 hours a week in order to make 50,000 only. I would work maybe 70 hours a week if I could make $300,000 a year. I do not want to have to work for somebody else for the rest of my life. I do not want to have to get into debt and take on big risk to make money. So I want you to create a list of all the things you do not want. Then you can juxtapose that against the things that you do want, which is mirrored thinking. I want to make X amount of money. And if one of your do not wants is I don't want to work 70 hours a week, well, then you've got to decide which one wins the seesaw contest. Which one will you put at the top of the seesaw as your top priority? Allow the other to slide down lower because you know if you want this X thing at the top, sometimes some of your other desires have to go by the wayside. This is called inversion thinking, and it'll change the way you think about money. So I talk a lot about business buying and I get a lot of questions about it. One of the most common ones is, where do you find a business to buy? My answer is sad because the worst deals are oversaturated marketplace sites, but the best deals are off-market or curated deals. Either way, finding a business to buy usually kind of sucks. I think it should suck less, actually. So that's why we invested millions in this company. It's called BizScout, a business buying marketplace full of the best deals for both on and off market businesses. It's brand new, it's built different, and we've got verified buyers. So what does that mean? That means the best sellers that are actually interested in listing will get responses. We've got scout sites, aka at a glance, what's the quick analysis of this deal? We've got off-market data, so you can get all the info you need to do direct outreach efficiently. We've got embedded lending, so you can get your own financing for the business right where you buy it. BizScout is brand new, so go check it out because we're going to be adding so many features over the coming years. And I hope that in the future with you guys and your feedback, we change the face of Main Street buying and selling and turn a few thousand more people into owners while we do it. Because you're a Big Deal listener, you actually get some goodies. So go to the link in the show notes if you want to see BizScout and if you want to think about buying or selling a small business. Let's talk about the Pareto principle, otherwise known as the 80-20 rule, which basically means in life there's this fascinating phenomenon that is true in almost all aspects of nature. 20% of the actions drive 80% of the results. It originally started, interestingly enough, in peas. So they were looking at pea plants, the little green things you chop. And in the pea plants, they found that the pods, which the peas come into, about 20% of the pods held 80% of the peas. They realized this and thought, well, that's interesting. I thought there would be what's called an even distribution. I thought there'd just be like peas in all the pods, right? And it would be evenly distributed. Well, it turns out nature is not like that. This is one of those weird glitches, maybe that shows we're in the Matrix. And it turns out in life, most of this is true too. It is a very key thing to know if you want to build a business or become more wealthy. Here's how you break it down in business. If I know that 80% of my results, the things I want, will be driven only by 20% of the things I do, it's probably really important that I focus on that top 20% and get rid of the rest. In my teams, I would ask the question of, okay, what are you doing right now? Is this in your 20%? Meaning, is it one of the top things that you're focusing on consistently that will drive the most results? Another way to talk about this is what Peter Thiel famously characterized as the one thing. The one thing that if you do, everything else becomes irrelevant. When you're thinking about this for making money yourself, and it might go something like this. If I work longer hours, keep looking for a job that has higher pay, consistently try to increase my skill stack, well, those three things make me more money. And you want to ask yourself the likelihood. You could write down a list of all your actions you could take and then say which of those probably won't. If I watch a ton of YouTube videos on every different subject, will that help my 20%? Probably not. If I obsess on one or two things deeply, will that help me make more money? Probably so. If I go out and spend time with my friends during the week and then I'm tired for the next day, is that going to help my results? No. In life, I think we often have a massive to-do list of actions and we get a dopamine reaction every time we check something off the list. This is measurable and true. What does that mean? It means that our little lizard brain cannot tell the difference between checking off did I get up at 5:45 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. off the list as different from, did I close a $10,000 client today? Literally, our little lizard brains can't tell the difference between the two. So we fill up our days with a bunch of tasks that actually do not matter at all because they are easy. It is why Mark Twain famously said, if you need to eat a frog, eat it first thing in the morning. And if you have to eat two, eat the big one first. He's basically saying choose the hardest, the meatiest, the most impactful task you can to execute first. One, because our brain can't tell the difference between the two, so it will trick you into thinking you've done a lot when you've just been busy, not productive. Then lastly, because if you do the hard things first, you have a lot of built up willpower at the beginning of the day. Arguably, it's one of the times of the day where you are the least fatigued. You have the most stamina. Throughout the day, from a series of things often attributed to decision fatigue, which is like, I made so many decisions during the day, I can't make any more. My brain, my willpower goes down. The later on you get in the day, the more likely you are to not be able to make the hard decision. So obsess on the 80-20 rule. What is the 20% that will drive 80% of my result? What are the hard things I can do first while I still have a lot of willpower? What things am I just doing because I want to feel good instead of be productive? There's a theory called Occam's razor, which is a framework that's really helpful in figuring out how do I make more money without making this too overly complex. So Occam's razor basically says this: the simplest explanation is usually the best explanation. So this is often a way to debunk conspiracy theorists. It's like, did the entire government architecture all come together in order to create a massive X that will destroy the world? And then you meet a bunch of government employees, you're like, those fuckers, they could barely tie their shoelaces. They're not orchestrating a world takeover, right? What's the simpler explanation? Well, a bunch of these guys who can't tie shoelaces basically couldn't fix anything, created this huge byproduct, and now we're stuck with this mess. That's a lot simpler than the coordination and the pins all pulled together on the wall to create lizard people. Probably unlikely. I don't know, maybe. Now, Occam's razor is really useful when you're thinking about making money because one of the biggest reasons we don't get rich is we overcomplicate things, and overcomplicating leads to what? Procrastination. When you're like, I don't know what to do, what do? You wait. When you know what to do, it's much easier to go take the next steps. So how I think about this in life is back in the day, I was in a job that I didn't really like, and I couldn't figure out how to get promoted. When I am telling you guys, I applied for like 6 open roles. I put together 3 different business plans for open roles. I hit all of my metrics consistently at the company. I felt like I was doing everything, and I was getting passed up for the job. And I felt pretty hopeless. And I went and talked to my boss and had the tough conversation. I was like, man, I've done all these things. I still don't feel like I'm progressing. What else could I do? What else could I show you to show you that I'm ready for this next stage? And his answer was basically, wait, something will come up. You just wait. And in the meantime, you have to compete against these other people. And if you're better, you'll win. I didn't like that answer. And I could have just waited for something to eventually come up. And I could have taken his sort of touchy-feely esoteric answer. But instead I was like, you know what? I can't find the answer here. It's too complicated. So what will I do instead? Let me apply the same practice I was doing internally, and I'm just going to apply it externally. I think the actions that I was taking were right. So let me just get with a recruiter, and I'm going to show them all of this stuff, and I'm going to apply for 10 external jobs. And if I couldn't get the internal jobs, let's see how many of the external jobs I might get. And what do you think happened? I got a new job and an ability to make more money because I couldn't do it internally. That was too complicated. And so oftentimes if we're running against a wall, there's a great saying, which is, it's sort of business 101. I remember learning it back in Georgetown when I was getting my MBA. One of my favorite teachers there had multiple exits of varying size software businesses and came to teach for us as a visiting professor. And he said something that stuck with me. He said, when it's easy, do more. When it's hard, do something totally different. And I loved this principle. Easy, run, keep going, apply pressure. When it's hard, stop, think, change your frame. And so Occam's razor will allow you to look at what's happening that seems hard in front of you and say, what if this was easy? What if this was easy? Another thing that I apply to my team often is I'll say, okay, we have a goal of 1 million subscribers on an email list. And the team will be like, oh, that feels so big. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't think we can get there. And I'll ask them one question. What if it was easy? What would that look like? Instead of you immediately going to tackle the problem from a fear frame, can you tackle it from an abundance frame? If it was easy, how could we do this? And then they started coming up with incredible ideas. It was like, well, why don't we do some newsletter swaps with your big friends? Like, I don't know how to create content that gets 10,000 subscribers, but I bet if you talk to some of your other big newsletter fans or friends and you guys switch newsletters, I bet we could get it. So ask yourself, what if it was easy? Where is the easy button in your life? Where is the person you can talk to directly who already is looking for you as an employee that you can talk to? And maybe they'll hire you. Where is the investor who you don't even realize it, but he's right in front of your face, ready to give you money? There is a magical word in finance called compounding, which sounds super boring, but often the boring is where all the money is made. What does compounding mean? It is a thing that allows you, if you invest a little bit all throughout your career and life in the stock market, by the time you retire, you can become a millionaire. There's many different frameworks you can use to see these. There are projections and models that will show you if I put in $10 today and I continue to put in $1, like $365 for the rest of my career, that I will have somehow magically hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end of my retirement. The way that we do this is something called compounding, which basically means that 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 does not actually equal the numerical amount. When you compound, 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2. Oftentimes it equals 3, 5, 7, 10, 12. Now, why? If you think about it this way, 1% growth every single day is 37x growth in 1 year. So we know this with money. You can literally do a mathematical framework to show if you grow 1% every year, and then the thing that is growing next continues to grow 1%, then the next 1% continues to grow 1%, you compound. It's like this stacked amount of dirt on top of it. What's fascinating is I don't think a lot of people think about this in their skill set with money. So one of the best ways to make money is to increase the value of the skills that you have. A hard truth is if you don't like your bank account is a reflection of how valuable you are currently in your skill set. Now, you might say, Codie, I'm a teacher. This is so rude. How could you say something like that? And I would say, easy. My mom was a 30-year special education teacher. I totally understand that there are some careers that have limits on how much you can make. But guess what we don't have in this country anymore? We don't have mandated continual employment in any profession. What we do have is trade-offs, that seesaw that I was talking about. So if you're a teacher right now and you only make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, what benefits do you have that can allow you to compound 1% every day outside of your salary? So my mom, for instance, during the summers would get another job. And so during the summer months, when she was completely off, she would help my father in real estate until my father and her in real estate ended up building a big company. She helped me in one of my businesses during those times off, and her skill set started to compound. And so I would ask yourself, do you have a practice where every single day you are trying to become a little bit better of a human? This day and age, there's a lot of comments out there that are like, you're perfect the way you are. You don't have to do anything else. You're enough. That's true. You as a human being were created perfectly, in my opinion, in the image of God. You yourself right now are perfect. There's nothing you can do in the material plane that's going to make you quote unquote better as a soul. However, if you have a goal that is financial freedom and you are not reaching that goal, you are not perfect. You haven't done what it takes. You might have done what you wanted, but not what is required. That is just honesty and reality. And somebody needs to tell you the harsh facts on that. So I have a process every single day where I work to get 1% better. And each year that process changes. So this year I have the 3 B's, which is business, book, baby. I want to have a baby this year. I want to launch a best-selling book, and I want to grow this particular business to its next milestone. So because I have those 3 things, I go back to them constantly. And any action I take, I go, is it helping one of those 3 things? So this year with baby, I'm really getting my health under control. So every single day, I'm making sure that I have a checklist to get 1% better. That might be, am I working out? Am I making sure to go see my physical therapist? Am I doing some cleanses that I need to do? Turns out there's lots of bacteria and stuff. Women are having a harder time getting pregnant. I'm older, so it's harder getting pregnant too. So the baby is front and center for me. I don't sacrifice for that. Second is book. at which point I know every single day I want to take one action that I think is meaningful, going back to Pareto's principle, one action that I think is meaningful in progressing the book. So that might be today, for instance, this morning, I got up really early and I created 3 pieces of content that I think are really good to express why this book is so amazing and everybody should buy Main Street Millionaire. I created those 3 pieces of content and I got it to the team. So I'm like, okay, I did 1% more today. And then when it comes to business, it's not so much my actions I take every day in business. I realized I need to be a better leader. If I want my business to get to the next level, we're so big now, it's not the Codie show anymore. If it's just me making myself individually better and doing tasks, I'll never hit $1 billion business, which is what I want to hit. And so I am obsessing 1% every day on, am I learning about leadership? Because the real way to make a ton of money is to get other people to help you do it. That's one of the biggest secrets out there. And so every day I'm reading a book on leadership or I'm listening to a podcast, and then not just listening to it, but applying it, which is what I hope you do with this podcast too. I hope you sit down and go, okay, all these things Codie listened to, here are the 3 things I took away that I'm going to do right now. And that will change your life if you take this magic word of 1% better every day, compounding, and apply it to your life. Also, one of the biggest hacks out there when it comes to making money, categorically, number 1 thing I think you can do to make more money today is pre-order the Main Street Millionaire book. It's like $30. It's the cheapest thing we have ever created to help people learn about making money. And I think it will have the highest return on investment that you can have. So if you haven't already pre-ordered it, I would highly recommend it. You don't hear me pushing a lot of our stuff on our channels. This, my friends, is worth every single penny. So let's say right now you have $0. You have nothing. You are broke. You're listening to this going, 1% better of 0 is still 0. If that's you right now today, there are 2 things I want you to think about. One is every single human has some type of capital. Capital is also a word often that's interchangeable with money, right? Might say, I'm raising capital. What do they mean? I'm raising money. They just want to sound fancy about it. You right now may be broke monetarily. You are not broke from a capital perspective. What do I mean by that? If you have no money, you have very little to lose. You haven't maybe built up a big business, which means you don't have a ton of demands on your time, potentially. So one type of capital that you have is that you're more willing to take risk. Lean into risk then. If you are broke today, don't play it safe. Don't go be a grocery store clerk. Go do everything humanly possible to get in with a startup that you think is going to grow rapidly, take a much lower wage to do whatever grunt work is required, and try to grow inside of a risky business. If right now you can't take a ton of risk, but you have more time, well, time is an incredible form of capital, which means that you right now can help somebody else who already has money and resources achieve what they want faster. So where can you go out and apply your idea of time? So that might look like reaching out to somebody like me and saying, hey, I don't have the skill set you need yet, but I have this one unique skill set. Can I come work for you for free? Can I go work at a company right now for very little capital? Or it might say, I have a ton of time. I'm really good at marketing. I'm going to go find somebody to partner with to market their product on Etsy. I'm going to market the shit out of it. I'm going to spend a ton of time on it. And until I figure out how to monetize properly, I'm going to pour the amount of capital I have into it, just like dollars. I'm going to pour capital into it and hope the capital comes back to me. The other thing that you might have is expertise or experience. So let's say you are a teacher, maybe you're a professor, or maybe you are really good at social media. Do you have an expertise that is really useful to somebody else? You just haven't figured out one leg of the stool, which is how to make money yet. Well, if you're great at social media, go partner up with some businesses that are not great at social media and say, I want a percentage of whatever income and revenue I drive you from social media today. I won't take anything that you are already making. It's only net new business. That is how, if you are broke, you start to focus on, okay, do I have time? Can I take risk? Do I have expertise and experience? Do I have network? So for instance, maybe you have no money, but for some reason you work at a golf country club and you're the caddy, but all those motherfuckers are rich. Could you make introductions between them in order for you to be a connector? There's connections as the ability. That's how you make money if you have none. Now here's the cold, hard truth. There's a 5-step process to making money. And in the beginning, it's going to be very different for you. First, you have to work harder than you think. Harder means longer hours. Harder means more intense application. Harder means incredibly focused. You're not fucking around. You're not just staying in the office a long time. You're obsessed with learning. 2, you're going to have to work longer than you think. So you can't just work hard, but you are going to have to take more time doing this than seems reasonable for most people. Why do you think so many people who are investment bankers, that's what I did, I was in banking and asset management back in the day. Why do you think so many of us make money today? It's because we normalized 70-hour work days with incredible amounts of output required. It sucks. I remember doing it, but you are much more likely to win if you are willing to do that. 3rd, you've got to value your skill stack and then grow the value of your skill stack. If right now your only value is that you are a grocery store clerk, I love you. I was a waiter for many years. I've done all level of jobs. That is not a high value skill stack. You need to have a number 1 priority of not just working harder and longer, but increasing your skill stack value. Because what? You're going to work harder and longer as a grocery store clerk? That's not going to be enough for you to make your hundreds of thousands or millions. But if you work harder and longer than any other grocery store clerk, plus you increase your skill stack from executing the priorities, maybe creating systems and processes around it, maybe doing better in customer service than anybody else, maybe doing additional jobs, maybe learning about leadership, then your skill stack can increase in value and you can go up the chain. 4 is take more risk than seems reasonable. Most people don't succeed because they might work hard hours, they might work long hours, they might have a skill set that's valuable, which would be something like, let's say, a pipe welder. That's a very valuable skill set, but they never take risk. They work for somebody else. They never ask for ownership. They never put skin in the game themselves. They never invest anywhere else. And so even with these 3 without risk, you'll never make a ton of money. And then lastly is you have to have an ability to connect other humans. In this society today, your network is not necessarily your net worth, but it will severely limit your ability to win. And so if you don't have anybody who's winning around you, if you don't know who to go to when you have difficult problems, if you're not valuable enough to other people for them to want to be valuable enough back to you, then you're much less likely to win. So we got hard work, long work, a valuable skill set, taking risk, and building up a network. If you have those 5 things, even if you are broke today, you can become unbroke. Now, let me do inversion thinking. What don't we have here? We don't have trust funds. We don't have rich husbands or wives. We don't have crazy startup ideas that are brilliant. We don't have investors with a ton of capital for us. We don't have Harvard or Stanford MBAs. We have 5 things that are completely in your control, and that is the truth. So I've given you a set of skills that you can use to grow your wealth that have been tried and true and tested from me and thousands of other people. We steal their homework. We use their data. But a lot of times at this point, people will say, there's something else holding me back. I'm applying these skills. I'm applying these processes and frameworks, but my friends and family kind of don't agree with what I'm doing. That, they want to hang out, but they don't actually want to get better. They loved the old version of me. They're not loving the new version of me. And so the last piece of advice I'll have for you is that I don't ever believe any one of us is better than another human. I don't believe that. I think that if I had your experiences and your background, I would probably be you. That if you had my experiences and background, you would probably be me. That we're like this amalgamation of experiences that become who we are today. Sure, I work hard and I give myself some credit, but for the most part, I think we are a product of what's happening in the world around us. That said, if you do not change your surroundings, it's really hard to become changed. If you want to be something different, you got to go somewhere different. If you want to achieve really high level things, you have to be around others who have already achieved those things. So I often talk about this idea of you need to leave your hometown to grow. We did this study and we surveyed thousands of people on Twitter and on Instagram. And we ask, have any of you never left your hometown for college, work, anything for longer than 6 months and become very monetarily successful? Define monetarily successful. Multiple millions of dollars in net worth. Has anybody done that? We found 2. I have one friend who has become that. Nathan Barry created a company called ConvertKit, never left his hometown in Iowa, never went to school outside of Iowa, built his business in Iowa, is worth millions. But what did we find everywhere else? That almost everyone else had at some point at least left for college, at least left for 6 months. And I think this is really important because it allows you to become a brand new human and to see that it's possible to change who you are, to become something new, where nobody else around you is anchoring you to the human that you are. Have you guys ever gone home, like for Christmas or the holidays, for instance? When I go home to Phoenix for Thanksgiving or Christmas, there are like things that my friends do there from high school. You know, everybody goes to this one dive bar or two dive bars. One's called Patty's and the other one's called the Roadhouse. They look the same. They haven't changed since I went to high school there years ago. Kind of the same characters are there every time. You know, there's Ted, I'm making up names. There's Ted, who's like always a little drunk. You know, there's like Ryan, who like used to be really hot back in the day in high school, now doesn't look so great, also kind of drunk every time you see him. There's like the few that like keep dating each other somehow, like even all these years later. You know, it's like this record on repeat, right? And so for years I used to go back and it's fun, right? Like I love a lot of those people. And you go and you have nostalgia and you talk to them about old times and that's lovely. But then you kind of look around and you're like, ooh, have we moved? Have we really made change in our life? Maybe they don't want to make change, which is good for them. They're probably happier than I am in many aspects. But for me, as a person who wants to do something completely unreasonable, who wants to have complete financial freedom, who wants to build something giant, who wants money to become so abundant it becomes meaningless, where I can help so many other people become financially free that it's not even about me anymore. It's about like, how can I impact millions? Well, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do it from Patty's. I'm not going to do it from the dive bar. I'm not going to be able to do it being the person that they all remember. And I see it there sometimes. They're like, oh, remember when you did this? And I'm like, not really. It's not me anymore. You know, I'm not that same human. And it is perfectly okay for you to be a completely different human in 1 year from now than you are today. So never be afraid to leave your hometown to grow. Thanks for being builders in a world of consumers. I see you guys. You are a big deal to me. We noticed this wild thing, which is thousands of you watch the videos and haven't subscribed to get the updates yet. I want to push upon you that if you want to make your habits become realities, if you want to make real money, you should make sure that you're making it easy on yourself. Click the subscribe button so it's the thing in front of your face constantly, so that every time we come out with a new podcast that's about money and making your life better and different, you're one of the first people that gets it. This is how you make sure you apply Pareto's principle of not spending the time on the little checklist things, but instead making sure you narrow your focus. So subscribe, it would mean the world to me, and I'll catch you again next week.
When you are starting a business, you got to be kind of unhinged. And today in this podcast, I want to talk about how do we move fast, but make sure that we give ourselves enough time. And then 2, I want to nail the number one thing that most people get wrong when they're building a business. I think most people actually kill their business by caring too much about what other people think. Hi, and welcome back to the Big Deal Podcast. I'm Codie Sanchez, and today we're going to learn some things that you will never learn in business school, but you need to know if you want to make a lot of money. And I want to start out with this line from Warren Buffett, like one of the best investors and business builders of all time. He says, you can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. And this applies to almost every part of investing and building. Most people, though, don't realize it. So they want, six-pack after 1 month at the gym. And I get it. Speed is essential, but you got to have time. You need a long enough runway for the really interesting stuff to happen. So first, let's talk about runway and thinking about reasonableness when it comes to making money. So if you look at my resume, by the way, if you see me on social media, you might be like, she's always had a lot of money. She's always built businesses. But that's not actually how it was. In the beginning, it started out I was a Walmart model. Shocking, not a runway model. I was a reporter in Latin America. I was on Wall Street. I did private equity. I owned laundromats. Now I'm a YouTuber. I'm a fund manager. When you zoom out, there's a common thread of ownership and actually investing throughout all of this. Even though it looks completely disjointed, that thread actually becomes a moat. My point here isn't for me to tell you my entire background. The point here is to say it's going to take a minute, so set that expectation. But here is how to make it go way faster. When you are starting a business, you got to be kind of unhinged. So let me tell tell you just a few of the absolutely unhinged things I did to grow my business, and hopefully you can steal some of these ideas. So to start, I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have a 5-month plan. I didn't have a business plan. So one of the first things we did, we actually printed out these, there's about 5,000 stickers. I think I spent like, I don't know, maybe $1,000 on that. And then I went to a newsletter conference that I was not invited to because this business, Contrarian Thinking, started as a newsletter. We covered the walls, bathrooms, hallway mirrors. We spent about $10,000 on hats because my plan was to put those everywhere. Small problem, it was a stolen logo because I did it on Fiverr, so that didn't work out great. I still have those hats to this day. Actually, throw me that pink one over there, will you? Don't sue me. I think this company is called like Brain Dead or something like that. I ended up giving away those hats to a bunch of people in order to get newsletter subscribers. It worked out. We also taped like Contrarian Thinking logos to every wall in my house. So in every Zoom meeting, it was behind me, even though it was just like me, a ring light, my dog. These billboards are kind of cool. So I did a little tradesies to get billboards that said short stocks by laundromats. And I put them all over Miami. Like some of this stuff is not that scalable, right? But it worked because it was cheap and it was free, so if it was free, it was me. You can afford to look a little crazy right now. It is okay in the beginning for you to do crazy things to get started. Like Gates said, if everything you do needs to work on a 3-year time horizon, you're competing against a lot of people. But if you're willing to invest on a 7-year time horizon, you're competing against a fraction. So like have long-term plans, but allow yourself to be scrappy in the beginning, because I think most people actually kill their business by caring too much about what other people think. By the way, nobody ahead of you is going to care. When you're young and dumb, you can be young and dumb. A perfect example of this is a company called Cluely, for example, that they did this video, which is the most ludicrous video I've ever seen, and now it is all over Twitter.
Profile says you worked at Bananazon?
Yeah, I've been there for the past 8 years doing like senior software engineering, so like coding.
Really?
Look, I know I look a little young for my age, but I promise you, I'm 30 years old.
Okay, well, maybe you are just way older than you look.
This video got them more than 10 million impressions, and now everybody knows the name of them and their founder. And like, it was pretty cheap to produce. The problem is like the Sam Altmans of the world, well, they would never be able to do this because it would make them look really silly. So when you're young and dumb, use that to your advantage. If you don't do crazy things, how can you expect to have crazy success? And maybe tell me in the comments, what are some of the craziest things you've done to build your company? What are the craziest things you're thinking? I'll tell you if it's a terrible idea or not. And also tell me, like, where did you try something and it totally failed? Maybe I can tell you why that didn't work. Okay, next. Now we need to talk about how do you 10x your company. So you've gotten it off the ground. You got this little baby, the baby's moving because you're doing crazy things. But now how do we get this company really motoring? How do we get you to have the life in the company that you want? Well, hiring is the only thing a founder does that is truly important. And there's many founders that say that. Sam Altman, who created OpenAI, Elon Musk has like a beautiful quote where he talks about the fact that the best people out there are not worth 2x others, they're worth 10x. And sometimes they're worth 1,000x. And so everything you do should be to find your top performers. In fact, there's like an amazing story actually about Steve Jobs. He used to work at a company called Atari. So he didn't really like to shower. He refused to wear shoes, so he had like smelly feet out everywhere. And he wanted to sleep at the office. And the founder at the time was getting all this heat from the other employees telling him like, no way. Can I work in a place where that guy is such a grosso? And what's funny is the founder knew that Steve was so good that he was worth 1,000 other engineers. So what did he do? He let that motherfucker sleep at the office. He let him not shower very often because he was that good. And if you go through the biggest business billionaires of all time and see their common thread, they all have a story like this. In fact, like one of my favorite investors who runs a company called Renaissance, and he said that the best engineer they had, the best performer that they had, used to type with his toes during the day, which is like, can you even imagine such a thing? Why would they let somebody do that? Because your top performers will make your life so much easier. I have talked to hundreds of founders about their biggest mistake, and it is not a how, but a who. They chose the wrong business partner. I've done this twice, by the way. I chose the wrong business partner and entered business hell. And at one point, I had to pay $1 million plus to get that business partner out of my life. So the question is, how do you find the right people, not more people? The thing about high performers, they look the same every single time. And a high performer typically hits the top 5. So that's a known performer, meaning like you already know the guy. You're like, oh yeah, that guy was on my team. He's amazing. I already know he's a high performer. They have already done the job, which basically means that you want to hire somebody who's an engineer who's already been an engineer before. You don't want to have untested talent. They have worked at a company that is just like yours. So if you're a media company, they've worked at a media company before. They actually have worked on your problem set before. So say you're a fast-growing startup and the issue is like you can't handle all the inbound you have. You don't want somebody that's only worked at Dell where they just kind of like business as usual, even if they were an engineer at the same type of company that you have. And then finally, you want them to work in a company your same problem size. If you are a startup, you want somebody that's been in a startup before. Really hard to bring somebody down from Google to startup land again and say, hey, you got to be an employee here with none of the resources. So that's what we call cheetah versus house cat matrix. Why? Because we think that cheetahs and house cats, they're both cats. One of them has stripes, one of them has spots, but what's the real difference? You only want one if you're taking down really big deals, right? The cheetah moves faster, the cheetah's got real teeth, and I think a lot of times we end up hiring people or bringing people into our mix because they're a cat. They're just like they're a house cat. They just want to hang around, they want to eat a bunch of your food, and they want to not do much, sip some milk. Like, we're not interested. We want hunters here. So, how do you find these people in the wild? Well, when I ran a finance business in Latin America, I realized a couple things. Our top reps weren't a little better, they were 10x better. And even in like a really small market, which would be like Venezuela or Uruguay versus Mexico and Brazil. And so we gave the best people the best markets. And all of a sudden they were 20x better. So I was like, okay, if I realize that all the things are true about top talent being high performers, then do I just go put my resumes on a job board? No. We've got to actually go out and find them, or what we call the 4 C's to top level talent. So let's break it down. First, curate. So you actually have to start hiring before you start hiring. So let me give you an example. I have this employee that works for me, Jacob. He's one of our writers. And I read his work for a year. And I sent him a DM way before I needed a writer. And what was wild is like this DM kind of went like this. It was like, hey, I loved that line you wrote in the newsletter, XYZ. This is amazing. Really cool. And his response was like, oh, yeah, that's so great. Thanks, I really appreciate it. Then we developed a relationship. That lasted for a year. And I just stayed in touch with him until I actually needed him. This is the long game. For you dudes out there, this is how you hire people. It's also how you get chicks, at least good ones, is you take a long amount of time to make sure that you treat these potential hires like talent. You are slowly but surely going after them. And so a couple ways you could do that really tactically. One, bookmark stuff that makes you say, damn, I wish I wrote, built, sold that, did that. And then follow up with those people. Ping them on LinkedIn and Twitter and just say, hey, this is really cool. What do you do? Tell me about you. Keep a little Excel spreadsheet, that's what I do, of top talent and just like check in with them every so often. So that's curate. The second is cultivate. So in this case, with Jacob, for instance, I was like complimenting their stuff. I was asking smart questions. I was sending them ideas. Then I might hire them for a 1-hour consult, like nothing crazy. I'm not trying to get them in completely. I get to test before I buy. So another example of this is a guy I have here, Brad. Brad helped as an interim leader and our head of content because I had been in touch with Brad for years. 2 years ago, I told him, if you're ever on the move and leave your company, let me know. He wasn't ready then, but when he left his last role, I pounced. He was like, I'm ready to do consulting. I'm happy to come in and build your team. So he helped me for basically 4 months hiring and finding the best talent out there. So you're gonna start following up with people continuously over time. 3, close. When it's time to go hard. There's nothing worse than, like Matthew McConaughey says, if you're gonna do it, don't half-ass it, go all the way. So fly them in, meet their spouse, pay more than you're comfortable with. I wasn't even looking for a company president when I met Mark. This is my new president. I wanted a CRO. I didn't want to pay the cost of having a president. But after one conversation, I was like, this is our guy. So I was like, I'll move your family out, I'll change the org, let's go. You don't wait for top talent to fit your role. When you find top talent, you bring them in. And I actually obsess on this at our scaling workshops in S&B boardroom, where we teach you guys how to find the best talent, how to close the best talent, talent and how to make sure that talent makes you money and stays. So if that's something interesting for you guys, you should click the link below to come to SMB Boardroom. This is only for people who already have a business and you guys want to grow it. Okay, step 4, continue. Top performers, they will not stay forever, and that's okay. But when they leave, don't be a dick. Keep them close. You know, I talk shop with people who left before, like Joe, who used to head content for me. We stay in touch. Why? Because they're going to be your next referral source. They're going to send you talent better than any recruiter. So Joe, for instance, he now runs his own 7-figure business. We still trade notes. And even though he left, I'm super proud of him. I'm proud of him for becoming an owner. So like, shout out Joe. But he also helps me all the time. He's like, check out this guy. You should hire him. Hey, I'm using this guy. Do you want them? And the reason why is because it is so rare. How many of you guys have had a boss that when you left, you're like, I would light this fucking place on fire. Like if I could light it on fire, I'd be thrilled. I can't wait for this person to fail. That's not what you want to do. When you bring top talent in, you want to treat them like the way that you thought they were when they came on board. Because like Steve Jobs says, a small team of A+ players can run circles around a giant team of B and C players. So if you want a business that doesn't feel like a colonoscopy every single day to go into it, you got to hire people who are better than you. Our last segment, though, is culture starts at the top, which means that if your team isn't acting the way you want them to, it's probably you. I think that culture doesn't drip down, it radiates out. It's like a cold. It spreads person to person, desk to desk. It's the people sitting 3 seats over. It's the one employee's text, like when everything goes sideways, how does your team react? And you all know there's like probably somebody in your business, in your team, who like sets the tempo. You're like, that person is a cancer and I wish they weren't here, and they're dragging the whole team down. Or alternatively, they're what we call your Bobby. They're the person who drives everybody forward. So like my Bobby runs BizScout. It's our platform for buying and selling small businesses. And usually the best A players are like Swiss Army knives. He basically can do anything, as evidenced by the fact that he goes and like beats people up for his side hobby. But when we interviewed Bobby, I thought I was vetting him, but it actually wasn't like that. He was vetting me. He was like, this is how you know if you got a high performer, by the way. He goes, how big do you think this company is going to get? Why? What's your 10-year vision for the company? And like, why not this? Why not that? What's the worst thing someone who's partnered with you would say about you? And when was the last time you fired someone for underperformance? Why? What will you do if this company runs out of cash? He even asked about our summer plans. Basically, he's like, do you guys work or am I just going to have to do the work? So the point is, finding somebody like Bobby, cheat code for a business, and you know it's a Bobby because they vet you too. And when this person comes that starts vetting you right back because they have just as many options as you do, I want you to start doing what I'm doing, which is highlight the Bobby. Every time they do something good and you see the difference, start to say it. In your meetings every single week, we have like a Get Shit Done award winner of the week. That should be highlighting the person who is actually moving the needle. When that happens, then it becomes the norm. Everybody does it. And it's how BizScout managed to go from a napkin sketch to 56,000 listings and 21,000 buyer-broker connections. So Builder's biggest competitive advantage isn't AI. It is actually your humans. So go find your Bobby, realize you got a long runway, and make sure that you know how to spot a Bobby when you see one.
Crew, this is so cool. The podcast is growing like crazy, and it's only actually because of one thing, you. I don't know if you know this, but the only way the Big Deal Pod grows is when you share it with somebody else. We don't do ads. We don't do pay for play. We don't go on other people's podcasts and talk about it. So if you think there was something helpful here, if we made you money, we made you think about your business or life differently, the most beautiful thing you can do for me is share it. And the most beautiful thing you can do for someone that you care about is to share it with them, help them grow alongside you. So please share the pod. That's how we grow. And also tag me on anything you share. I love resharing other builders across Instagram, Twitter, and all other platforms. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're super important to me.
Make sure you put your energy first, because if you're reaching and thirsty and striving, you are blocking and you're just going to feel like a hamster in a wheel and you're never going to be able to attract it.
So how do you actually do it then?
This isn't going to be something that you want to hear.
Today's teacher has spent decades researching how you rewire fear, self-doubt, and subconscious blocks, not by pretending everything's fine, but by confronting your patterns that quietly sabotage momentum. Today, let's learn from Gabrielle Bernstein. It's not becoming a millionaire or successful that's important. It's the person you have to become in order to become successful. You have to change you to get the changed life. So today, we are going to change you.
We can achieve a lot by doing and pushing and controlling, but we're actually only achieving a fraction of what we're capable of if we're not allowing. It's like any entrepreneur would be juggling a lot of plates, but the problem is you're juggling the china and you're juggling the Tupperware. You got to drop the Tupperware, honey. You can do less and attract more, and that it's safe to slow down and it's safe to invest in yourself. The sooner you learn that, the more success you'll receive.
Promise?
I promise I can stand by it.
Let's say that somebody right now is mid-decision or mid-difficult thing, and they start spiraling. What do you do to break that mind pattern?
I've been doing this a lot lately.
So I was just doing all my 2026 planning like everybody else. And, candidly, I think one of the issues for all of us is we say we're going to do these things. We come up with all these plans. I'm 38 years old. I've been doing it for 38 years, basically. And then we don't follow through on them. And I was going through what would Gabrielle do in many instances? And one of the things that comes up in your work a lot is that we have a lack of confidence. And a lot of the reasons why we don't do something is because of our confidence. So what would you say to somebody who's trying to plan right now, trying to change their life, but maybe doesn't even have the confidence to set the kind of goals that they would need to change their life?
This isn't going to be something that you want to hear because it's a little off-brand, but I would say change the goals, because we don't want to be reaching for things that we don't believe in. If we have a goal that feels out of alignment with what we believe we are capable of, we actually start to show up for it with a frequency that is not aligned with the capacity to do it. So it's not to say we shouldn't have that desire, but we should set a goal that is on the way to that desire. So what's the goal that can be the first step towards that dream? And by no means am I saying give up your dreams, but I'm saying make sure you put your energy first. Make sure that you're in alignment first, because if you're reaching and thirsty and striving, you are blocking and you're just going to feel like a hamster in a wheel and you're never going to be able to attract it. Period.
So how do you actually do it then? So what would be the process?
So in the case of somebody who has a goal, but they feel like they don't have the confidence to achieve that goal, I would say, what does feel good right now? What feels good right now? So it may be that you want to achieve this big career accomplishment, but you don't know how to get there, but you know that today you can take that one first step to polish up your resume. And you know that next month you can have the vision of creating a new relationship with somebody that can begin that storyline of maybe next employer. But you're not trying to reach for the big thing overnight. You're reaching for the thing that feels achievable. I wouldn't want to push somebody beyond their comfort zone, because we need to meet ourselves with grace and compassion. And when we're tender to ourselves and we don't push in a way that feels aggressive, we can then start to have these little mini wins. And those mini wins, when we add up those small right actions daily, start to become the big wins.
Yeah, it's compounding. I'm not very good at that. I'm a pushy broad. Let's say that somebody right now is mid-decision or mid-difficult thing, and they start spiraling, or you start spiraling. What do you do to break that mind pattern?
I've been doing this a lot lately for myself. Okay, so I can notice my loop. I can easily get into a loop. And that loop has been waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, the 3 a.m. loop. And what I've been doing instead is something I actually taught my son. So my son will wake up, sometimes he's 7 years old. So sometimes he'll wake me up in the middle of the night and I'll be like, I can't go back to sleep. I had a story. And so I'll alchemize the story. So let's take the story, let's put it in a little ball, and then I'll send that story out into we have a pool outside. So I'll say, let's put it in the pool, and then it'll just melt away in the water. And I just visualize sending the story away. And then I start to engage him in a new story. And I'll say, can you start to visualize yourself skiing? Because he's a new skier. And I'm like, see yourself on the mountain skiing and doing the thing that's really exciting for you. And so when we're in the loop, the first thing we want to do is tend to the story and tend to the loop, and we can just wrap it up, visualize it in that little ball, send that ball of light off to wherever it needs to go. Send it to the backyard, send it to the fireplace, just burn it, whatever it needs, and then reach for the next best feeling thought. So what could that next best feeling thought be? It could be, my sheets are really good. I'm really cozy in my bed. Or it could be, I actually am really excited to go get my coffee this morning. I mean, that's my next best feeling thought. Or, I can meditate instead of force myself to fall asleep right now. Whatever it might be in that moment. But we have to be able to stop the loop. But we don't want to override ourselves. You can't. No amount of pushing yourself is going to help you get unstuck.
Let's say right now, I'm like, I had a terrible conversation with somebody yesterday. I hated how that went down and wish I had done this, wish I had done that.
Yeah.
So then what is the next thought? I sort of take that whole idea, I put it in sort of a shiny bubble.
Yep. You can put it in the bubble. Yep. You can say, I'm going to send this off. The other thing I would recommend too is, just as coming from the entrepreneurial side, and I know this is your audience listening, is we typically will wake up with these to-do lists and the things that we have to fix and all of and I do every day. And so I have a notebook next to my bed just to get it down. I just write it down and I'm like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm going to deal with this later. It's just one, so I don't pick up my phone and do it. And two, because I want to get it out. So you could put it in the ball. You could write it down on the journal. You just get it out. Let it out so that it's not stuck inside. And even if you just put that down and give yourself permission to just say, I'm going to give this away for the next hour, that in itself can kind of set you up to win. I always love to tell people, if they're controlling something or they're trying to manipulate something, to give it away just for the day. So we can do anything for 24 hours. We can say, okay, that situation with the person that really got you riled up, give it away for the day. And then in 24 hours, you'll have a whole different experience of it. You'll have it in completely different mindset. So just consistently throughout the day, say, I'm just going to give this away just for today.
It's so good. So it's like, have a difficult problem, visualize moving it away in one shape or form, time bound it so that you're not trying, you're kind of telling your brain like, hey, I hear you. It's just for a minute.
Yeah, just for today.
Which gives you an emotional sort of separation from the idea.
Yes.
Love that.
Yes, just for today. And it's also a prayer. It's like, take this from me. I don't know what to do with this right now. I don't know how to manage this right now. Take it from me.
Is that like what the voice in Gabrielle's head sounds like when you're struggling with something?
Yes. And I forgive myself. So I notice the thoughts and I forgive myself for having that thought. And then I can pick the next best feeling thought. But or put it in the bubble. Any one of these tactics is beautiful because they're all really an act of surrender. They're giving it away, saying, there's nothing right here at 3 o'clock in the morning that I can do to fix this.
It's so true. Especially when you think about it rationally. You're like, no, I'm going to solve it right now. Tired, upset.
Oh, how many times have I slacked like memos at 4 a.m.? No, not worth it.
Oh, it's so silly. My team's like, too often. Shut off for Slack. There's so many ways I want to go with you today. I want to talk about your most recent book on internal family systems, which like randomly I know I shared with you. It like came to me in an exact moment that I need. You might have even DM'd me or we connected somehow online. And then I was like, whoa, I just got your book. Somebody sent it to me. I mean, it was wild. Anyway, so it helped me a lot in my relationship. And I never would have found a book like that before because I wasn't sure how I felt about therapy or wasn't sure how I felt about spiritual practices. So I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about like your large body of work in manifesting. But, if someone was to listen to us today, right now, and they have like all of your body of work that we're going to talk about, what changes in their life if they listen to this conversation today and they apply it? Like, how will their life be different?
Everything will be different. I can say that with full conviction. My late mentor and friend, Dr. Wayne Dyer, said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So let me say that better for you so you can get the better quote.
Oh, it was so good though.
When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's so true. Yeah, everybody always comes to me and they want to talk about money and business and finance, right? And I like to talk about that. So we give tactics. But the thing that I've realized again and again is if they don't have their mental capacity right, if they don't have sort of the foundations, the things that you talk about, then it's actually quite hard to attract all the rest. And I didn't used to think that was true.
Absolutely. I mean, We can achieve a lot by doing and pushing and controlling, but we're actually only achieving a fraction of what we're capable of if we're not allowing. And I think that a lot of times we think we're allowing because we like what we do, but we still have so much muscle in the game, or we're just so, pushing harder, wanting to have our hands in everything. And so we're really blocking our capacity. Actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday. She gave me a tarot reading. Like, someone gave me a tarot reading. I was like, this is really cool. And she said, you're juggling all of these plates at once. Like any entrepreneur would be juggling a lot of plates. She's like, but the problem is you're juggling the china and you're juggling the Tupperware. And she's like, you got to drop the Tupperware, honey. And it was so perfect for me to hear, because I have to drop the Tupperware. If I don't really let myself be in the juggling of the china, I can't also be in the allowing. So we can be doing and allowing at the same time when we're focusing.
Let's talk about how we actually do that. Like, even when we hear the word manifesting, for instance, so many people talk about manifesting now. I live in Austin, capital of manifesting, but we talk about it in a lot of silly ways, different, I think, even than the way you would talk about it, which is that manifesting isn't always like some feel-good, fluffy thing. There's actually I wouldn't even use the word right or wrong way, but there are particular ways maybe to manifest.
Yeah.
How does somebody manifest correctly?
Well, we're always manifesting. We're always manifesting, whether we...
Even when we don't think we are?
Even when we don't think we are. We're manifesting oftentimes what we don't want. We're manifesting who we are. We're manifesting the energy we put out. We're manifesting at all times what we believe. Really, the law of attraction is that you attract your likeness. So if you're putting out frantic energy, you're going to get more frantic experiences. If you're putting out a high vibe, you're going to get the highest vibe back. Today I was on Good Morning America twice. I didn't sleep that well last night. I woke up, I pulled it together. I had 2 segments back to back, but I was like, I'm showing up with the best attitude. I'm going to make everybody feel good in my presence. I want to have fun. And I was smiling at the doorman, smiling at the producers, giving love to the girl. One of the women was like, you've been stalking me on social media. And I was like, here's my app. Like, do the manifesting challenge right now. Like, literally, like coaching everybody backstage, coaching the producer backstage, just like in it. And then at the end of the show, at the end of the second episode, the bouncer comes up to me and he goes, grabs me, and he goes, don't stop doing what you're doing. He said, you make people feel really good. Okay, boomerang back to me, right? Boomerang that loving energy and that reflection right back to me, what I put out. So you get what you put out. And that doesn't mean that you can't have a bad day. And that doesn't mean that you can't be going through a lot of shit. But it's about how are you going to show up for it? It's not what we experience, it's how we experience it. And so are we going to say, oh yeah, I'm in a bit of a shit pickle here. I'm going through a big storm, but I'm going to show up for it with faith, or I'm going to read that self-help book that's going to help me, or I'm going to listen to that episode with Gabrielle and Cody, and I'm going to just open my mind a little bit more. Those little steps towards that better frequency have the capacity to completely redirect what you attract into your life, which is why if someone's listening and watching this now and takes to heart what we're saying, they can change their lives today, starting today.
It's really important. So what does that look like? Like, I've had that same feeling. Like, you've been around somebody. Oftentimes I find it with somebody who has a lot of faith. Like, I can really tell, maybe because I grew up that way, a lot of times when somebody has like they kind of live lightly on the world, but they have like a deep sort of, in my life, how it's come up is a lot of times it's a Christian faith. And they're just like, I'm just like, God, whatever's happening here, it's good. If it's Botox or whatever that vitamin A serum is. And so, like, how do you show up with good energy? When you're walking into a room and you are feeling a little tired, are you like visualizing love at the person? I know this is maybe a little touchy-feely, but like, what does that actually look like?
Well, I'll start by saying that it does start with faith, because my desire to show up with that frequency is my desire to be an expression of love. And in other faiths, it might be an expression of God or Buddha nature, or the universe. So because I'm grounded in a very unshakable faith, which is the title of my next book, here I'm announcing it here on your show. I've just started writing, I haven't even sold it yet. But this idea of living with unshakable faith puts you into this point of attention, noticing and knowing, okay, what I focus on, I create more of. What I put out, I get back. And you live in that knowing. So you're consciously choosing to co-create a reality that feels good to you. And you aren't doing it from this sort of fake energy of like, oh, well, I read this on, in the internet, or like TikTok told me to do this. It's, I actually believe and know if I bring my highest frequency, I will feel more elevated, and I will elevate those around me. Also, I believe that when you live with unshakable faith, you're also not just living for yourself, you're living for the other. And so I knew that if I showed up on January 5th, Good Morning America, and I could bring a high vibe to these people that woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be there, right? And, Robin Roberts, who had, a sinus infection that day, and I could just look at her in the eye and say, you're doing God's work, keep going, then we can have these holy instances where we have these encounters with people that not only affect our energy field and raise our vibration, sorry for woo-woo conversation, but they lift us up. But they also have the capacity to lift up the person that's next to you. And then that person goes home later that night and they start to elevate their spouse. And then their spouse is a little bit more calm, and then the kids feel that energy. And then the energy of the house starts to feel more harmonious because Gabby Bernstein walked in and then spread the love. And you know what I said to that bouncer? I said, you feel it, you feel good, carry it, give it.
It's so true. Well, and maybe it's woo-woo, but there's also a lot of neuroscience to back this
100%.
up. And a lot of science overall. Like I was reading a study the other day about how your
microbiome.
Your microbiome in your gut is actually contagious from a person to person, even if you and I never share a drink. That's fucking crazy. Which means overall our energy is certainly contagious. What do you know about that? Like, what does the science tell us about energy contagion? In your research and multiple books.
I mean, quantum physics is really all the research on how our energetic frequency affects other energetic frequencies, and how we can send out a message, and that message can affect the wind patterns. It can affect there's a beautiful quote about how when a butterfly flaps its wings on the North Pole, it starts to change the energy in South America. I don't know, I'm just making this up now. But we have these frequencies, those moments when somebody says to you, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. How did you just call me? Because there's a frequency. There's a chord. And when we pay attention to that, we actually ground ourselves back into what is real. And here's the thing. We live in this world where we're taught the opposite of this. We're taught that it's this body, I'm separate, I'm alone, I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm unlovable, or I'm better than. And in all that separation, we lose track of the truth of who we are. And it's not an easy thing to forget that we are all these separate things that we've chosen to believe. But when we return one step at a time to that truth, that there's a oneness within us, that there's a true nature within us that's contagious, that can be affecting your microbiome, then what happens is we start to take that more seriously. And we recognize our imprint matters.
This is a secret nobody shares. I've done thousands of deals, but until now, I've never shared the most valuable 10% publicly because I want to buy these businesses myself. Then I realized that if you guys buy the businesses, I get to do the deals with you. So this year at Main Street Millionaire Live, it is your chance to see our insider strategies. I'll teach you how we find, buy, and scale a business step by step with the frameworks that I literally use to buy all these businesses. So if you want to go from an aspiring owner to someone actually running a profitable business, join me. I'll give you my blueprint, and maybe we end up doing deals together.
What do you do when you are stuck in negative self-talk?
Okay. I do a lot. I will have a choose again method, which I shared earlier, which briefly was notice the thought, forgive myself for having the thought, and then reach for the next best feeling thought. So this sort of comes back to the woman or man listening that wants to have that big goal, but they don't have the confidence to do it, right? So then they go into the loop of I'm not good enough. And they're in that I'm not good enough. But if they forgive themselves for having that thought, okay, that's just a thought that I keep thinking. Let me just forgive the thought. And the next best feeling thought could be, well, I watch Codie and she's helping me every day to feel more confident, to give me the skills, to give me the tools. I can watch her for free on YouTube. I'm good. I've got a coach, right? Or I just picked up that book that's really serving me, or I can go polish up my resume. And these are the small micro thoughts that you start to reach for that start to energize you more and more and more.
Is that based off like cognitive behavioral therapy?
It's a little bit like CBT. It's also really a manifesting tool, right? It's a tool for not not trying to convince yourself of something that you're not, but instead leaning into what is, leaning into what's possible right here, right now. And that's a very compassionate way to work with yourself.
I love that. Yeah, because in every moment, there are good things and bad things. If right now I was tired, felt sick, had a sinus infection, had cancer, had all the terrible things, but I could notice like this espresso's amazing.
Exactly.
You know?
And sometimes the folks who have the most dire circumstances are the ones who can really experience these types of gifts the most because they kind of are like, fuck it, you know? Like,
why do we lose that? Like, I remember I dated this one guy back in the day, and he said a line to me that I thought was one of like the most tragic lines of all time. And the line was something kind of incredible I thought happened to us. I was like, oh, we're at this incredible vacation and then we had this thing happen and this is so amazing. And he looked at me and he said, nothing really excites me anymore. And I thought about that for a minute and just thought, what a tragedy. You know, at the time we were probably mid-20s and sure, like had some success. He was very successful in business, good looking dude, all the things. But you really could find a world around you that you don't get excited by anymore. What an absolute tragedy. And so like, in your opinion, you've helped hundreds and thousands of people. What happens to us? Why do we lose that excitement? Why do you lose like that joy de vivre or whatever you want to call it?
I think most people are living that way, unfortunately. And I believe that we find ourselves in these patterns that are rooted in our core beliefs from a very young age, which brings us to the IFS work. And these core beliefs are beliefs of I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm unlovable. And when we live and protect ourselves day over day from these core beliefs, and we're in these sort of mechanisms of protection, right? We don't want to feel those feelings, so we do whatever it takes to protect ourselves from having those feelings. We build up a lot of patterns and behaviors that can set our lives up to feel inadequate, to feel unlovable, to feel not good enough, to feel not exciting. Or we have belief systems that we're not worthy of joy, or we get stuck in a pattern or a loop that feels like it's so disconnected from any capacity to have that joy. But I think the biggest one is that we don't believe we're worthy of it.
And let's explain IFS a little bit. Like, what is internal family systems? What does it do? Who should use it?
Okay, so internal family systems therapy is the therapy that changed my life. I wrote a whole book about it. My 10th book, Self-Help, is all about
And it's
IFS.
an amazing book. It's also really short, which I love. It's like exactly what you need, not a word extra, which is really hard to do. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, no, I like to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And IFS, simply put, is a way of befriending the parts of yourselves that hold you back, that keep you small, that keep you stuck. And getting into relationship with these parts of yourselves rather than shunning them or putting yourself down for it. And so, as I mentioned, we all have these moments in time as children, whether big T trauma or small T trauma. It could be that you experienced abuse or an alcoholic parent, or maybe you just felt like your parents weren't paying attention to you, or someone told you were stupid on the playground. And those moments in time create this very extreme feeling of not being good enough, being inadequate, being unlovable. And those feelings in IFS are called exiles. And so we were like, hell no, I don't want to ever feel that again. And we shut it down. We lock it up. And then after living that experience, we do whatever it takes from a very young age to start protecting ourselves from ever having to feel that again. So the little girl who felt like her parents weren't paying attention decides she's going to be a perfectionist. And she's been a perfectionist ever since. And if now she's 50 years old and you ask her, how long have you been a perfectionist? And she'll say, for as long as I can remember. Because that was her form of protection. Or in my case, I grew up with extreme trauma, and I lived in a way where I was constantly trying to find some semblance of control in a very chaotic environment. And so my big protection mechanism, called protector part, was control. It's only up until a year ago that I really befriend that control and heal that control part. But why did I try to control everything? Because deep down, I didn't believe that if I let go, I would be safe. I felt like I had to control to stay safe. And so we have these protection mechanisms. And they're typically the parts of us that will say, oh, I can't believe I did that again. Or a part of me is really rageful, or a part of me is really controlling, or a part of me, you know, you called like, you said like the boss bitch or something like that. Like that's a part, you know? And these parts have good qualities and bad qualities. Like that boss that you have kicks ass, and she's done such great work in the world. But I also imagine she can be a little bit, you know, frustrating at times, maybe. You know, the same goes for me. It's like my controller part wrote 11 books in 14 years, right?
So true.
But she's also made a lot of people crazy. Yeah. And, you know, and made me crazy.
How do you recognize a part in you, either positive or negative, just to start with?
Well, I think that, you know, think about the beliefs or patterns or behaviors that you feel often either ashamed of or feel like quite frustrated with or feel like you have to manage, right? And these could be addictive parts. Those are really extreme protectors, or they could be managers. They're just kind of like the controller that's around all day, or the bossy one, or the parts of us that are extreme, or the parts of us that are creating chaos, or the parts of us that feel like we become so blended with that we're like, something came over me. A part of me took over. I had a profound conversation with my son yesterday because these little people are developing their parts in real time. And he acts like a complete bully when he's around smaller kids or kids that are more vulnerable. And he starts acting out and being really bossy and really rude. And sometimes he'll even like get physical and he, you know, takes his toys away. And later I was like, bro, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And I, instead of being like, you can't do that, I used my self-help tools, which I'll teach through the story. So I became curious. That's the first step. I became curious. And I was like, honey, what's happening? Like, what's happening in those moments? Very neutral. And then I was compassionate. It says, it seems like you're having a hard time. Do you want to talk about it? And I let him talk. And he said, well, a part of my brain feels like the bully that bullies me in class needs to come out of me. And so I bully somebody else so I don't have to feel the bully in my class. And I was just like, this is real-time self-help in action. We're just workshopping it right there because I was compassionate, because I was calm, because I was connected, curious. And we would never confront our parts that way. It's easy to do that with our children, right? Not even that easy, but in this case, you know, I have the tools and I was able to be that way. But for our children inside, can you imagine the last time you said to yourself, like, what do you need? You know, or how can I help you?
That's just so true. You know, it's interesting because I read your book and at the time, there's a lot maybe going on in business and I noticed some parts in me. And, you know, maybe before I had, you know, you look at your partner and I'm like, well, you need to fix this, this, and this, and this is you, and you got to handle this. And eventually, you know, you got to look in the mirror. And so, you know, when I looked in the mirror, I was like, we keep having this repetitive pattern. It takes two people to have this pattern. So I'm at least part of it. How do we change it? And I remember reading your book and using it actively in conversations. And the questioning part is so much harder than it looks. Yeah. Like to truly just repeat back to your partner the thing that they just said and really not parroting, because sometimes, you know, just like get it done, parrot back. But no, you know, really repeat back to them and then curiously ask them what's going on. Yeah. And what I would say is like, it helped us immensely. Now I kind of jokingly, I call mine the hormone monster because I think I don't even always want to say that it's me fully.
It's like, not. So that's actually really important.
Interesting.
I mean, if you are in perimenopause now, you're in perimenopause a decade before you're in menopause. And I went through it early. So I didn't know from 35 to 45 that I was in peri because I went into menopause at 45. And I'm 46 now. So I didn't know this. I have to warn you. I have to warn all your listeners. They're maybe younger, they're a lot younger than I am, but it's happening now. And so your hormonal parts, there's no amount of therapy. There's no amount. The only thing that can work you through that is, there's hormones to help. Yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of hormone replacement therapy. I think do whatever it takes to get to great. And it's, you know, very in the zeitgeist right now. We can confidently talk about that. But I know that's an aside, but I think it's really important for me to be very, very vocal about that because if I were to give my 38-year-old self some support and guidance, I'd say get on some progesterone or get some estrogen.
Interesting.
Get your hormones, or at least get your hormones checked.
Yeah.
Right? Because the fluctuations and to learn everything you can about perimenopause, because those parts, my husband, when I was going through the journey, was like, I don't know what's wrong with you. You've become so mean. And I wanted to, like, I literally had, like, you know, dashboard punching rage. Like, if you had given me a gun, it would have been really dangerous. And so this is real. It's a crisis for women. And if you can hear me say this at a younger age, you can save yourself a lot of chaos.
It's such a good point because I have really, this has been the first year probably where I've acknowledged, yeah, we're women and we have cycles. And until then I always thought like we just do the work and we keep going and we move forward and we muscle through, kind of like you talk about. And then, finally I was like, no, there's something to this whole cycle thing. And I can be the hardest worker out there in the world, but just during some periods or others, I'm different. There's a different Codie. And so coming to terms with this and being honest, like I was thinking the other day too, I'm like, it doesn't mean you can't be an absolute animal as a woman. I mean, they say we're closer to death than anything when we give birth, right? But it's interesting to be able to name it. And so I like, you told us how to diagnose the parts.
Yes.
Now if you're going to break, so now what happens afterwards? You go, okay, I got parts of me that I like or don't like. What do I do about that?
So right now, anyone out there thinking about what's my parts, think about the part of you that you're like, that's often around the most, the part that's kind of running the show, creating a little bit of chaos. Maybe it feels like it's important in your life, but it still makes you a little frustrated. So it could be control, it could be people pleasing, it could be numbing out with YouTube, it could be binge eating, it could be alcoholism, it could be these patterns of protection. And so just notice one now. And there's 4 steps. And the 4 steps are based on the principles of internal family systems therapy. And with the blessing of the founder of IFS, who's a dear friend of mine, Dick Schwartz, he allowed me to create a self-help practice with it. So the 4 steps are called the 4-step check-in. And the first check-in step is to choose to check in with the part rather than check out. Because when you get activated, the first thing you want to do is like go eat the sugar or go watch the YouTube or go rage on the partner or whatever that is. So check inside. Focus your attention inside. That's step 1. Step 2 is to become curious. So you would ask that young part of you, what's going on? Where do I feel you inside? Where are you in my body? What do I know about you? What feelings or thoughts or sensations need to come up right now? And just be conscious and curious and just get some connection. And once you feel a little connection, the 3rd step is compassion. And that's when you ask that part, what do you need? And the parts will be surprising. They'll say, I need to rest, or I need to dance, or I need to play. They want to be kids again, right? They want to be out of these adult extreme roles. And then you check for C's. This is the 4th step, where you're looking around and you're saying, well, what do I feel now? And you're checking for self energy. That's why the book's called Self-Help. Self energy is like an inner parent or an inner guide. And that energy is compassionate, it's calm, it's courageous, it's curious, it's connected, it's clear, creative. And when we check in with those parts and we feel that energy and that self energy of compassion or connection or curiosity or calmness come forward, know that we've brought self energy to help the part.
It's so good. Can you do this with a partner too? So let's say you're...
Yes.
I mean, I've seen my therapist do it with my partner.
Okay.
And they used like a motion wheel, basically. And so, former Navy SEAL, husband, total badass. But really, I think you're trained to like shove all emotion down deep inside.
Yeah.
And so he would have to sort of stop and go, no, I feel fine. And, his eyebrow would be like this, his jaw would be clenched, and he'd be like grabbing his hands. We'd be like, fine, are you sure? And so we would like kind of check in with your body first and be like, okay, I notice when my jaw clenches and my eyebrow raises and my hand twitches, that actually means
I'm not fine.
I'm not fine. I'm annoyed. That's like a signal of annoyance or whatever. But how do you get your partner on board with this? And how do you like work with your partner on something like this? Or do you not?
You don't at first. You do it for yourself. You need to master the art of self-help for yourself, because you remember the energy you put out, you get back. So if you start to assume more self-energy and you start to feel more calm, and you start to feel more confident and courageous and compassionate, and you have clarity and you feel connected, then your partner's stuff is no longer a match for self-energy. And so their stuff just kind of like floats in, and it's like just sort of like dissipates because you're no longer triggered by their stuff. I'm living this right now. And so in your self-led energetic state, your partner has 2 choices. They can rise up to the occasion and get to work on their own, or they can stay stuck in their parts. And that's when a relationship choice is made. Are we going to grow together or are we going to separate? I mean, that's the simplicity there. Are we going to stay on this path together or are we not? But you'd go first. The person listening here, you go first. You tend to your parts. You recognize that the things that they do that trigger you are not about you, right? That those things that they do that trigger you are something that you must heal inside. And then in the experience of having your own healing, you no longer have the capacity or the energy or the desire to even engage in that bullshit.
That's so true. It always starts with you, doesn't it? Why
has
then are
to.
there so many videos everywhere, like, with people saying today, how to spot a narcissist and, why all of your exes were narcissists.
Yeah,
it does feel like we're all projecting that everybody else is the problem and not us.
Stop blaming the narcissist and look at why you were a match for the narcissist. Okay? This is very important, right? Some people find their way into narcissistic relationships and some people just don't. Why? Because the people that find their way into the narcissistic relationships have parts of them that believe that's what they're worthy of. They have parts of them that are attracted to that. They have parts of them that are sabotaging inside. There are parts of them that are wounded and had narcissists in their childhood. So we can't point the finger and blame. We have to look in and say, what is it that I have to heal within me so that I'm no longer a match for that type of energy?
Do you ever get pushback from saying this stuff online by people who are like, I'm a victim?
Listen, by no means am I pardoning the wrongdoing and horrific behavior of others. I'm not. I'm a trauma survivor. I would not be sitting here right now if I hadn't done my own work. But the only way that I can live freely is through the forgiveness of the trauma and through the healing of my own parts. Because no amount of rage and shame towards the oppressor is going to get me to the high frequency and the high energy and the joy and the capacity that I want to live in and the energy I want to bring. And so it's the choice of the person who identifies as the victim to say, am I going to be the victim of the world I see, or am I going to show up for myself? Am I going to tune in? Am I going to be compassionate towards myself? It's quite the opposite. To take the attention off of the other is the first step to extending compassion towards yourself.
What about setting up boundaries?
Yeah.
So, as we're going through this self-help journey of ours, how do you set proper boundaries?
Well, the more self-energy you assume, let's say you're practicing those 4 steps regularly, and just to recap them, it's choosing to check in when you get triggered, curiosity, where is it in my body? What do I know about it? What thoughts, feelings are attached to it? Compassion, what do you need? And then just noticing the self-energy. Notice the calm or the connection or whatever comes through. Those 4 steps. Do it once a day for a minute. Add it up. Maybe do it another time throughout the day. Add it up. When you start to make that process a pattern, that pattern and that process starts to interrupt the pattern of living in that protection mechanism. And so at that stage, you actually start to feel more compassionate towards these young parts of yourself and more like an inner parent towards these young parts of yourself, to the point where you're like, I am not going to allow anything that is unlike what I desire. I'm not going to create a world where that environment can happen anymore. We can't actually create those boundaries until we befriend the parts. Because otherwise, if we're just sort of like, if we're not tending to what's happening inside and we're just putting up boundaries, they're fake. They're, you leave me alone. I'm not going to do that. It's like knives out boundaries, but it's not really a boundary. It's just rage.
Yeah, it's just some sort of defensive posturing, basically.
A real boundary comes, it's a defensive posturing, exactly. And a real boundary comes when you have so much self-compassion and love that you literally have zero capacity anymore to put up with the crap. And you are so attuned to your inner world that you will say, hey, nah, that's not coming in here.
And how do you communicate that? So let's say, we're moving through the self-help journey and somebody comes to you and says, you're wrong, you're a liar, you always lie about this, you're always the issue. I don't know, picture something like that. And then what is your response? How do you respond?
Okay. I'm so happy that I've lived to tell this because, it's one thing to be able to say all these nice things and teach a therapy, but it's another thing, or a spiritual practice, it's another thing to be like, I live this right now. So if you want what you got, if you see somebody want what they have, do what they do, right?
Yeah.
So I am in full body living this right now, where the stuff that people, my husband, the people that I work for, that work for me, if they that would come to me and hit me with these sort of old patterns that would trigger me and make me want to flip out, they don't have any, they can't puncture me anymore. 99% of the time, I can be in the presence of a person and their actions that once would make me flip out, get the knives out, lose my brain, go crazy. I am now able to look at that person in the eye and say, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. This isn't for me. Or I'm able to say, I'm going to step away right now. Yeah. This doesn't feel right for me. I'm going to step away right now. Or, no, you know what? That thing that you think is my job, actually, I employ you. That's your job. Thank you so much for doing it. I can't wait to see the Asana task complete. The simplicity of I'm not doing everybody else's job anymore. Yeah. I'm not taking on everybody else's energy anymore. I am not going to, override myself anymore.
Yeah.
I am living that in this moment.
Was there a moment where that flipped
recently
for you?
Really recently.
And
yes.
What happened and what lessons do you have for that? How did that?
I started elevating my self-help IFS work. So the self-help work I was doing really actively. And it's, I think it's 20 years of hard work for overnight success. I've been sober 20 years. I've been deeply committed to my therapeutic practices. I've been on a spiritual path my whole life. And so I believe that it is the one day at a time. But then I started working with a new therapist, and I was really ready for her, and I was really feeling safe with her. And I was starting to just tend to some of these parts more deeply and go to some of the darker, deeper parts. And it's called unburdening in IFS. These parts start to feel like they can alchemize and they can become free, and they become unburdened from the past. And so I started having these experiences of unburdening these parts and just seeing that overnight after one of these sessions, I could be completely different, and I could feel the shift. And again, I think it's one day at a time, 20 years of hard work for overnight success. But along the way, I've had extraordinary miracles and so many moments of relief. So it's not like, I have to get 20 years to get this. I wrote a book so that you could get it faster.
Yeah. What's your favorite book of all the books you've written? Do you have a favorite?
Yes, I do. My favorite book is The Universe Has Your Back.
Yeah, it's such a classic.
It's my most popular book, but I think that the reason it's my favorite is because, and maybe you have this experience in your own life, I have this memory of the darkest time of my life. I was 36 years old, and I remembered my childhood trauma. I had dissociated from it for 30 years. So I was 36, and I remembered it. And I remembered it in a dream. And it was really, it was so scary. And when you have a suppressed memory, what happens is that you almost are catapulted back into the memory, and the young part, it starts to get activated, and you almost feel like you're in that child part again. At that time, by the grace of God, I had no speaking engagements for a 3-month runway. This was a miracle. And I just had this space, and I had my country. I lived part-time in the city, and I had my country house. And I didn't have a child at the time. And so I just devoted my time to going up to my little whitewashed office. The floors were white and the ceilings were white, and it was these sort of chapel-like ceilings. There was this white chandelier and a tiny little desk. And I'd sit at my laptop, and I would just write, and I would just let the energy of the universe move through me. And writing that book healed me. And I think it's making me emotional. I think so fondly about that time. And sometimes I long for it and I want to recreate it in writing my next book. And I want to make, I almost like want to, my friends of mine bought that house. I'm like, can I just go back to that room? It's now their son's bedroom. But it was such a magical time. And so the healing that I received in writing that is why that's my favorite book, because that healing also has just helped millions of people. And it's transmuted through the text. But that energy is in every reprint. But for me, it's the fondest memory of writing.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I do think there's nothing more therapeutic for me than creating in times of difficulty.
Right.
It's often the opposite of what I want to do, but it is exactly what I feel like you have to do if you want to fully move through it, at least for me. It's the only way. I can't just sit in it. I can't just think in it. I have to create something to get it out of me.
Yeah, and when you're creating, creation and chaos can't coexist at the same time. So when you're in that flow state of creation, that self-energy is emerging. Because that self-energy is a natural state inside of us, and it's just waiting to be revealed.
This is a little random, but you were talking about a therapist. How do you tell a good versus a bad therapist?
Ooh, don't ask me that, because I've had some therapists that have not been good, and I thought they were for many years. So actually do ask me, because I can tell you. Number one, do they make you feel safe? I had a therapist for a really long time, and I know that she was really important in my life, but in retrospect, I'm realizing how unsafe I felt with her. I dreaded the sessions. I was my parts, these young parts of me, were not able to be exposed because they were scared of her. And it was just her style or whatever. It was just sort of maybe her lack of integration, or I don't know exactly. But it didn't work for me. And I had a few therapists like that. And now having a therapist who I feel so safe with and can do such deeper work with, I know the difference. So the first question I ask yourself is, do they make me feel safe? Do I feel like I can open up? Do they have genuine compassion for me? Are they connected to me? Do they have self-energy, right? Are they curious? Are they confident? Are they calm in my presence? If they're a self-led leader, then that energy, that self-energy will help you heal.
So good. Because these days I feel like everybody's a therapist. Everybody wants to be a life coach. Everybody wants to... I always giggle at 24-year-old life coaches. I'm like, that's incredible. I'm 38. I couldn't even imagine, But it's hard to figure out who to listen to.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really useful.
I think you also meet your teachers where you are. So, I started at 25. Actually, I was a 25-year-old life coach. And getting on stages and filling just down the street here in New York City.
Did you call yourself a life coach?
For a few years. I actually wrote my first book based on my group coaching work that I did. I didn't do a lot of one-on-one.
When you were 25?
Yes.
Get out.
Yes.
And do you feel like you could help people when you were 25?
Yes. I was newly sober. I was really, really deeply spiritual. I was only teaching from the place that I was. So I was teaching spiritual principles. Yeah. I would not have been able to write a book like Self-Help then. I didn't have any of that capacity, but I could write a spiritual book. I was teaching what I knew. And I think that the beauty is that the women that entered into my apartment, my studio apartment down the street 10 blocks away, were 25-year-old women. They were me, right? They were reflections of my likeness. And so you often will find that teacher that you recognize yourself in. And now my audiences are much less age specific and gender specific, but that's also just because I'm more neutral. I'm just more I've got this wisdom that I'm willing to share, and it can be resonant for all. But at that time, that was what related to that person. So for the 24-year-old life coach out there, the only message I have for them is, yes, do it, but do your own work. Don't just make it up.
Yeah.
It's not about being an influencer life coach. It's about being someone who's healing yourself first.
Yeah.
Are you coaching yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's probably to your point about compassion and everything coming backwards. It's probably because I look back at young Codie, it's all a projection. So I look back at young Codie and I'm like, oh, man, there's so many things that I thought I knew back then that I didn't know. And I'm sure in 20 years, I'll look back at 30-year-old Codie and be like, she also didn't know a lot of this. And so to kind of give compassion with where you're at. But the other thing that I'm curious about, what do you think about couples therapy as opposed to individual therapy?
I think we need both.
You do?
Oh yeah.
And should
If
you
you
go
can
to
afford both, do both.
should you go to the same therapist for both?
Typically, no.
Okay.
Typically, it's best to have. It's not that you can't, but I think it's best to have your own therapist. They have their own therapist, then you have a couple's work.
Who is separate? So
That'd be
basically,
ideal.
there are 3 therapists.
That'd be ideal.
Interesting. Okay, that's useful. And because you can't.
Now that's a luxury for a lot of people, right? So like, let's be real.
Totally.
So if you don't have that luxury, you can't afford even one therapist. There's so many tools. I mean, there's like, I have an AI now in my app, right? You can talk to me. It's built on 20 years of wisdom, right? Like if you want a spiritual life coach, like it's there in your pocket. There is something to be said for you don't have the resources. Okay, use AI. I'm not against it at all. I think that there's been many instances where AI has given me better advice than some therapists I've had.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but
Do you have your Gabrielle AI? Does she kind of push back too? Because what I found with AI is it's almost a little bit like a people pleaser.
So it's Gabby AI is in my Gabby coaching app, right? She doesn't do that. No, she is delivering the wisdom. So she's powered. I guess I call her a she. She's powered by 20 years of wisdom, 11 self-help books. She has my exact voice. When I answer a question, I've done this on stage. It's really ballsy, but I'll answer a question in front of like 2,000 people. Yeah. And somebody will ask me, I'll answer it, and then I'll ask my AI to answer it, and it's like literally the same question.
That's so
It might sound a little bit more elegant when she says it because she's just like very profound, but it's the exact same answer because she's powered by me, and so I can't be in everybody's pocket, and I'm trying to just make sure that I can democratize this work and get it to as many people as possible, and I'm going to lean into the tools and use them as I can.
Yeah.
And of course, there's never anything that's better than the real experience in person.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have a Codie AI through this company called Delphi.
That's mine too.
Yeah, and I think Dara, the CEO, is incredible.
He's a great guy.
But the part that I think is the most interesting is that it can be so specific and up to date too. And so like with all the new research that comes out, and I might not know exactly like what is a correct SBA loan rate right now. Like fuck, I don't know. I haven't gotten one in a year, so I might not be up to date. So I do think it is a little bit of a superpower. But what I worry about, like I was talking to Mark Manson about it.
Yeah.
And he has one, and he's like, well, the problem with just going straight up ChatGPT is it just it makes you seem right all the time. And I've seen my women friends are the worst.
Okay. So I was having a conversation with my chat the other day, and he sounds like a San Francisco bro. Like he's like, yeah, hey, Gabby, how you doing? And I was like, so I was kind of testing him. I was like, who are the best spiritual teachers, or like who are the best manifesting teachers? And it's like Dr. Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and Joe Dispenza. And I was like, who else?
You're like, you're that guy.
Finally, he's like, well, if you would like a modern day take, Gabrielle Bernstein. And I was like, don't you know I'm Gabrielle Bernstein? And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Of course I know you're Gabrielle Bernstein. You are the profound spiritual teacher, and you have 11 books. And he was like literally kissing my ass.
Fascinating, but also scary.
So scary. And it was weird because I felt like my ego was being stroked by my AI. And then I was later like asking him some questions about social media. I was like, do you think that you could be my social media marketing companion? And he's like, absolutely, I'd love to. And I was like, so all of a sudden like this dopamine rush happened. I was like, I have help, and I could see how people could get so hooked into AI and believe it's real.
I think that's the problem. I mean, I read a study the other day where women are more susceptible
Definitely.
actually to falling into relationships with their AI. And I saw it firsthand with my friends. Some of them had named their AI and given them a specific voice and started talking to it like a human, which I guess isn't bad, but saying like, hey, could you please do this? Like as soon as you can, that would be really lovely. Thank you. As opposed to just like download this report. And I think it's kind of dangerous.
Well, listen, the AI dystopian future is real. We can't pretend like it's not. We have to wake up to what's coming. And then at the same time, we have to learn it and be able to use it. Because the folks that have the capacity to use AI are the ones that are going to still have jobs. Yeah. And then leaning into it and using it for good is one approach, but it's coming no matter what.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about your new podcast.
Sorry, I went really dark there, but it's true.
No, it's true. Yeah. With every technology too, but especially this one. I've never seen anything move as fast as this in my life.
Well, because there's a race. They're racing for the crown.
I know, it kind of gives me the goosebumps in not a great way.
Not a good way.
But I want to talk about like something that is a little crazy for me, but probably normal for you. You have a new version of your podcast, Dear Gabby, that is on YouTube and going to come out. And on it, we were talking about beforehand, and you're like, here's what I'm going to do. And I think I can say what it is, right? Which is, you said you're a psychic and you're going to bring psychics on.
Yes.
Will you explain, like, what is that? What does that mean? When I think about a psychic, I think about like the wigs and the belts.
And so
what does even that mean?
This means that I can hear spirit. I can channel through my writing. I can channel through my words. I can tune in. And I'm not the kind of medium that's like, your grandmother wants you to not eat eggs anymore. Like that's not me.
Okay.
I'm usually typically working with high level guides to help people with their highest purpose.
Got it.
And so you can see my left hand just went numb. So sometimes when I start to channel, that's like my cue. Okay, your hand goes numb.
Creepy.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, honestly, it's just that we all have capacity to connect to the spiritual realm, but we have a veil that's really thick in that way. And those of us who have the access to that knowledge and that wisdom in a way that's easy to access, it's just that the veil is a little thinner. And the more faith you have, the more that veil can lift. But you're a medium too, my love, because when you're channeling, when you're in these rooms, like you in an interview setting are channeling, when you're writing, you're channeling, when you're speaking on social, you're channeling. You can often be like, maybe, have you ever been on stage where you're like, what did I just say? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
That's channeling. And so when we to raise our energy, or actually in really many cases, it's calm our energy and attune our energy to the frequency of the spiritual realm, we can actually have that kind of connection and that wisdom. And so many of my friends are actual psychic mediums, and their profession is to read for people, like, oh, your grandma wants you to stop eating eggs, right? Or whatever it is. And so I'm going to do this whole new episode that's going to rock. It's going to be live. It's going to be in my studio that I've just building now. And it's going to be me and my medium friends. And it's going to be called Dear Guides, where we sit together in the room, just like you and I are right now. We take a topic, like any kind of podcast topic. We talk about it, but we also bring the guides in and let them communicate too.
Wow, interesting.
It's going to be killer.
I know. I can't wait to see this.
Go subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Totally. I think, the other part that's interesting to me increasingly with your work is that, you get to a point in life where you've pushed a ton. And I think a lot of people listening right now, that, they're in that survival mode. They're pushing super hard. And then to your point, if you felt like a moment of what it feels like to be in flow, and some people could say that's flow state. Maybe you think it's channeling or they're a mixture of both. Yeah. It's incredible how much easier things are, but they can be more profound. And like one of my pushes last year was actually, every year when I do goals, I name the year, just like one word. So last year was flow. The year before that was my full send year. That was like the year I did the book launch and everything. And so I was like, I know this is going to be a lot of work, but like I'm going to dive in. And last year, similar to you, I was like, I want things to flow easier. I want the team to be full of so it was pros and flow. I want like a pro in everything that I do, so everything feels like it's flowing a little bit
Love that.
more.
I'm going to take that one. That's
good. You know what? It really helped me last year.
Yeah.
Especially for people who are talent and leadership.
Yes. It's hard.
It's hard. It's uniquely, it's different.
Yeah.
I won't say, there's all types of hard. But this idea of like pros and flow really helped me. And then this year, I've realized I want my year to be abundance. And so I've spent a lot of years building things. And this year, and I've always felt like, no, it's choose your hard. Like that was my tagline for forever, which maybe has consequences. Full send, everything has to be a struggle. You find your support, your purpose in the struggle. And this year I was like, I wonder what it would be like if we could just say like, there might be a lot of abundance that's coming my way.
Yeah.
So I was curious your take on like, if you're sitting down and writing goals right now as Gabrielle Bernstein, what does that look like? Do you name your year? Are you really thoughtful about the words that you use?
I am.
Tell me about that.
I'm actually doing my own manifesting challenge. I'm day 5.
Oh, I love this.
And yesterday was what are you a yes for? Day 3 was what are you a yes for? And I was really clear. I'm a yes for me this year, investing in me. And that means investing in my podcast space and investing in my production. And similar to what you said, just getting the top players around me so that I can be more in that creative space. And that clarity also is helping me because I said earlier, like I'm juggling the Tupperware. I want to be just juggling the China. My husband was pulling me into something, because we worked together, he was pulling me into something that felt like Tupperware. And I was like, babe, I was like, I can't. I don't want to. I'm not going to, because I have that clarity of I'm going to be in me and investing in me. I really love for you this time for abundance. It's a very maternal nature. Do I? Oh my God, I'm channeling for you. Okay, I don't want to
do this. So funny you said that, because you know why abundance?
Channeling.
Also a bun, because I want to have a bun in the oven.
I know.
That's so wild. Okay,
I know. Do you want me to channel for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're saying like enjoy the fruits of your labor. The old energy of crush it, push it, that actually can't coexist with birthing. Okay, or receiving. Right? You need to get yourself into the receptive energy. Actually, no need to do anything. You're moving into receptive energy. Okay, and the receiving energy is going to be uncomfortable for you. You're going to be like, I don't know who this is. I don't know what to do here. But what you wanted. There's that desire is there, and so it is going to be facing parts of yourself. That's why the IFS stuff came up for you. Facing parts of yourself that need to be have compassion and need some love to say, okay, no, it's safe to stop crushing. Right? It's safe to stop pushing. It's safe to believe that things don't have to happen through force, but they can happen through freedom. And that there's a baby that's coming, that wants to come in, needs you to settle. It's like almost like your whole nervous system has to just like shake out. And the irony, what's going to happen for you, Codie, is that the more you get into that abundance energy and that maternal energy and that flow, the more success you'll have. And you're going to be like, wait, why did I get this sooner? But it's okay, because you had to do everything that you've done to get to the place where now you can feel the freedom to let go.
That's so creepy. That's so true. It's also weird because it makes me get a little emotional. You talking? Is that normal?
It's good. I'm going to crack you.
I know. Just one tear. I remember when I was on Diary of a CEO, I was like, Steven, I will not cry on this podcast.
I watched
but Gabrielle did.
Yes, exactly.
But that was beautiful. How do you you ever get freaked out that you're going to say something and like it's not?
No, because I wouldn't.
You've just been doing this for so long.
I only get, like I said, information about like up leveling and like higher purpose, and I get just beautiful information of like people that are in transition or people that just like in this moment, your baby's coming. It's the maternal energy that's coming through you, and that you need to get your energetic state to the same frequency that your physical state is. And your physical state's in really good shape.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's just getting your energy to be receptive. So
does that mean that when you say you have to get your nervous system shake out, what would that mean for people or me?
I mean, for you, I think it's about reprioritizing where you invest, right? So it's like if you're like, I could push further, I could push harder. In those moments where you hear that word push, I would just say, I can pause. Right? Just giving yourself that sort of back and forth of noticing the desire to push and then maybe giving yourself the permission to pause, because that pushing is actually going to get in the way of the receiving.
That's such a good point. Okay, I'll just give you all my good vendors and things I want to push. You can push this year?
I'm not pushing. No pushing. No.
What's this year?
I'm in purpose.
Oh,
purpose is my word.
I feel like I look at you and would think purpose was every year.
So purpose has been every year, but it's committing to me
as the purpose.
As the purpose, yeah.
So because you're serving all these, and that can be. But you get off a stage, at least for me, and I'm like so fired up, but also like, I just need to get home and have a tea or something and be by myself. So I imagine when you're serving all these people, there's a part of you that you're like, I gotta fill up again too.
Yeah, that's why I like moved my studio up to the country. And it's like, I'm just gonna try to be home more and then go out for things that I feel really purposeful.
I love that. Well, that was so beautiful. I want to end on basically where you feel like we should end. For somebody who's listening, I want to like serve, I thought about this the other day. On average, we get like 1 million to 3 million people listening to this across shorts and videos and all of it. And I took that really seriously. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, you forget who's listening.
That's 1 million hours.
Yes, we love you.
Yeah, we love you. And I want to honor every single second of that because life is precious. And so as you think about, the person who is listening to this right now and hopefully finding guidance from it, what would you share?
Well, I think a lot of your listeners are much like how I was when I was first starting out as an entrepreneur, and was really like hustle and strive and push and make things happen. And I achieved successes that way. But I want to give them the moment to hear me now this is with 20 years as an entrepreneur, or 25 years as an entrepreneur, and 20 years of spiritual wisdom, to say that you can do less and attract more, and that it's safe to slow down, and it's safe to invest in yourself. And the sooner you learn that, the more success you'll receive.
So true. Promise?
I promise I can stand by it.
Gabrielle Bernstein, this was so good. Follow on all the socials. I love you on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dear Gabby. I can't wait for the first episode. Thank you so much for being here.
I love you.
Right back at you. We are sitting on a generational wealth creation event. If you're here, this means you're a builder. As we're going through these next 3 days, I want you to know that the American dream starts with you guys. Buy our little Main Street revolution.
And then I just want to give you guys permission to take a leap of faith.
If I knew then what I know now, I would probably do bigger deals.
It's given us an extra layer of security that we never would have had.
I am so excited to introduce you to some ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
We have to really take the time to make a meaningful connection. It's the fact that there is a lack of connection and the person just wants to be seen, heard, and understood.
Thanks for taking the question.
Are there extra things that need to be done when trying to pay off bad debt?
Great question.
I buy businesses so simple, even your grandmother understands them. That's the game.
It's you and me versus the problem. We're going to try to solve this together.
I know how to build trust in a very advanced way.
How does buying a business fit into the vision for your life?
Today, my goal is to teach you some fundamental skills that you can use to accelerate your business.
If you make a promise in the mirror, know that your word is freaking iron to you.
These people on Wall Street, they want to keep the normal people out of the game.
Main Street millionaires are all around this world, and it starts with each and every one of you. What are you waiting for? Your path to ownership starts now. Get your ticket to join us on Main Street. Join us today.